Levels of consciousness are the most important understanding of human consciousness. They clearly define every step of the advancement of intelligence and openness of consciousness that the human being is able to achieve. It also defines all psychological, mental, emotional states, as well as has a direct correlation with dimensions, vibration, and frequencies in the universe. So levels of consciousness have three main categories. The lowest category is victim-abuser category, which is from the level of 20 to 200. The second category is self-empowerment, between 200 and 400. And the third category is self-realization, between 400 all the way to 1000 of full consciousness. So these three categories define how human consciousness operates. At the lowest state of victim-abuser consciousness, a person is operating either being victimized by their consciousness and life experience, or actually being abusive to somebody else or oneself consciously as well. Victim-abuser consciousness is actually quite common and many people experience it, but generally temporarily. For example, feeling fear, anxiety, or anger. So these emotions are experienced by everybody, and they are actually victim or abuser emotions. Because anger is lacking understanding, fear is lacking light and love, it is lacking knowledge, it is lacking knowledge of the truth, knowledge of oneself, knowledge of life, and thus fear or anxiety is residing in one's emotional, energetic, or mental body. So fear is a state of ignorance or darkness, which is lacking deep understanding of reality. The same way, many people are actually operating at the level of 175, which is pride consciousness. It is called a materialistic consciousness. And it is about 25% of all human beings are still operating within this materialistic way of seeing the reality and having a materialistic identity, identifying with their body, only identifying with their position at work, identifying even with the car or with the house or any kind of material possession, as well as social status. So pride consciousness has a problem that it is dependent on something external. So this actually has an element of vulnerability. So nearly a quarter of humanity, perhaps even more, are within the victim-abuser consciousness. And that part of humanity is actually in a permanent state of victim-abuser consciousness. However, every person experiences emotions like anger, sadness, frustration, and so forth, which is a temporary experience. So levels of consciousness actually mean a stable or permanent level of consciousness. The second category of self-empowerment, it is even more common, because that is where the courage arises at the level of 200s to be able to achieve something, to have some success, and to have courage to change one's life. And this is where also positivity comes in, the positive thinking, as well as becoming successful, becoming empowered, setting up goals, and as well as changing one's life, and life coaching fall under this category of courage and self-empowerment. The next level is neutrality, and that's where also there are many people who simply are okay with life. If you ask your friend, how are you? They will say, I'm just okay, neither good nor bad. So neutrality is also very, very common because there is a certain trust in life, but it's nothing either too good. It's just okay, it's just satisfactory, it's just neutral. However, the next level of consciousness is much more important, which is optimism and willingness. And people at this level of consciousness, which is 310, they have a certain connection with their heart. They are, as commonly known, the glass half full, so they're optimistic. And I'm sure that you know a few people around who are very heartful and very optimistic quite naturally. They also feel willingness to do things, to change things. They feel intuition, they feel their heart connection. So there's a lot more trust in life, and life really starts to empower people at this level of consciousness to really become successful at whatever they do, and to be able to be more connected with life and with their own self, with their own heart and intuition. The next level of consciousness is forgiveness, acceptance, and letting go. And that's where a person becomes more connected with their heart, with their emotions, and a certain emotional intelligence arises that a person is now being able to actually deal with emotions and to transcend the emotions, to heal emotions, to be beyond emotions. So at the level of acceptance, it's a lot about managing, dealing with emotions. A very common term used is emotional intelligence. The next level of consciousness of 400s is where the self-realization category comes in. Self-realization is realizing who you already are in a deeper place, in a deeper self. So the inner light of 400s is commonly known as awakening. Awakening of higher consciousness, awakening of inner self, awakening of higher self, awakening of higher intelligence. It is where a very big transformation in life happens with much more lightness and ease of living. So this is what is awakening. It is lightness and ease of living. Why? Because the densest emotional energies are now healed and transcended. So thus a person feels a very big relief from something heavy that has been kept for a long time. So awakening is actually a very beautiful thing. It's not necessarily spiritual as well. It is awakening to lightness, easiness, and higher consciousness, higher connectivity with yourself, your inner self, your deeper self. At the level of 440, that's where the inner wisdom awakens. The inner wisdom is basically receiving knowledge from inside you. receiving higher intelligence from inside you, receiving the answers from inside you. So you don't need to read many books anymore, you don't need to try to actively learn something anymore, because the answers come from inside you. And this is really amazing, this is really beautiful, because now the higher intelligence is giving you answers from within. So what is the ultimate answer? Once you have all the knowledge that you have ever wanted to know, what is the ultimate answer? The ultimate answer is love. And that is the level of 500s. It is realizing that happiness comes not from knowledge, that happiness comes from the heart, and thus love is the next step. Love is bigger than the mind, and that is called inner love. Inner love means coming from inside. That love is felt from inside. It is unconditional love. It is loving yourself and others unconditionally, no longer needing a certain circumstance or a certain connection or a certain relation or a certain condition, that you only can feel love if you have a wife, husband, boyfriend, girlfriend. You can actually feel love from inside you unconditionally. It is also called intelligent love, because this love is bigger than the mind. It knows how to take care of your mind. And once this love matures, it grows to become consciousness of oneness, which is 540 on the scale of 1000. Consciousness of oneness, consciousness of unity. It is also called planetary consciousness, because the intelligence and consciousness now sees a much bigger picture of reality and a deeper interconnectedness of all things. And thus oneness is experienced, oneness with the environment, oneness with others, oneness, we could say, with the universe is experienced, because everything is connected. And it's not a mental understanding of connectedness. It is actually experiential feeling of connectedness and oneness. And that's where many healers are. Many energy healers, many even shamans, and many meditation teachers, many yoga teachers, many people who want to really make a positive change in the world. So many healers and people wanting to make truly positive change of unity are at this level of consciousness. The next step, which is more advanced, now we are coming into maturity of consciousness, or spiritual maturity, and that is the level of presence, consciousness of presence. Presence, it is not only, it's not mindfulness, it is not being focused on the now, on the present moment. Presence is actually a mature and advanced way of being, where your beingness becomes complete. Your chakras, your energy system, your energy field is now complete. And thus you can feel your whole totalness, your wholeness, completion. You feel your whole being. You're no longer identifying that this is arm, this is leg, this is the mind, this is the heart, this is the root chakra, this is the crown chakra or kundalini energy. You're no longer identifying with any particular part of your being. You realize that all these different parts are forming one being. which is your being. And this is actually why humanity is called human beings, not human doings, not human understandings, not human feelings, human beings. So this is actually a mature way of being. And presence consciousness is also called cosmic consciousness. And this is where I am presence is. It is a connectedness with your I am presence. It is already an advanced consciousness, and actually at this time, at this point in time in history, right now, there's only about 5,000 people on earth who are truly in the consciousness of presence, who truly live from that place of consciousness. So out of millions and millions of awakened beings, only 5,000 are actually today now at this advanced state of presence. Other terminology for this advanced state is cosmic consciousness, also Christed consciousness, being one with Christed self, and Christ is actually a state of consciousness. It is also a way of being with energy, with yourself, with energy. It is no longer being in energy, it is no longer being in the mind, in emotions, it's being with energy. So it is a correct way of being with life. So this is where advanced levels of consciousness begin, at the level of 600, and then with a certain transcendence and maturity comes a non-dual realization, a transcendence of duality, and non-dual realization that there is the black, there is the white, but in the white there is the black, and in the black there is the white. Yin and yang are actually one thing. They're one thing. And ability to be beyond yin and yang, beyond black and white. So that is called non-duality, seeing all the sides, the one side, the other side, and even the edge, and the total picture. That is called non-duality, transcendence of duality. The next step, which then is actually the first step of enlightenment, is the level of 700s, where person realizes awareness as the source of being. So it is no longer being, it is no longer seeing the one side, the other side, and the whole thing. It is no longer a non-dual space. It is awareness which is aware of the non-dual space, awareness which is aware of your being, awareness which is aware of this experience already. And once a person realizes the truth of awareness and stabilizes in awareness, that is called the pure subject, which is realization of awareness as the source of oneself beyond objectivity. So that is the first step of enlightenment. The second step of enlightenment is called the great void. It is going beyond the subject into the universal void, the complete unknownness, and that is called actually the womb of the universe, beyond manifestation. So from the womb of the universe, manifestation comes and all the galaxies are being born, and the womb of the universe is the great void, the great unknownness. Some of the enlightened teachers at that level of consciousness, they really like mysticism. the great mysticism. However, that is the level of 800s, and that is not the final realization, because the next level of consciousness is 850, which is divine grace and love union. It is called the Father and the Mother God, the divine love of Father, Mother, God, who have created the universe, and that is called grace, the divine grace, which then uplifts you and allows you to transcend the universe, to transcend the objectivity, to transcend even the great void, the birthplace of all objectivity. So you transcend the subject and the object, and actually also the process, the subject, the process, and the object. And that transcendence with grace is called the divine grace and love union. It is a very beautiful state of consciousness where one transcends unconsciousness, transcending the deep sleep state, transcending the unconsciousness. So this is where the light of real consciousness shines through, and then the next level of consciousness, 900s, is a supra-causal truth, because that is a transcendence of causality, and thus the clear diamond truth is seen. And this clear diamond truth then starts to cut through everything, to see through everything, to be omniscient, knowing all, seeing all, being all-powerful truth. This truth, the omnipotent truth, has one aspect, that there is a seed which is called the I thought, I feeling, the very, very seed of the mind, of the universal mind. So this I thought and I feeling, the seed of the core of the universal mind, once it is transcended, that becomes the final liberation and the final realization of the Absolute Self, which we call full consciousness. Also we call it the boundlessness, the boundless now, where all the waves of the mind are settled into the boundlessness of the now. It is the big now, the full consciousness, no longer seeing the reality from any single point of view, seeing the totality as one thing, and with complete boundlessness. So there are no more mental waves, and there are no more any kind of identifications of I, myself, and any kind of feelings of I-ness. So that becomes the Absolute Self. It is also known as God consciousness, as full consciousness, pure consciousness, boundlessness, boundless now. So this is the final step in terms of the levels of consciousness, the final realization of who you truly are, knowing thyself fully, who you truly are. Of course, there are a lot of confusions on the way to 1000, to the full consciousness. There are a lot of questions of practices. What is effective practice to reach 1000? So levels of consciousness give a lot of clarity, to know where you are on this map of consciousness. Where you are exactly as a GPS, knowing exactly where you are, knowing exactly what is your current challenge, your current obstacle, and what is your next step. What do you need to do as a next step to progress to the higher level of consciousness? And what is the practice that will be effective? Because if you have been practicing the same thing for the last 5 years, well, probably it's not helping you anymore. It became just a hobby. So there are effective practices to help you to actually progress to the next higher level of consciousness. So this is a great value of the levels of consciousness, a great clarity to know where you are, what is the next step, what is the next practice, and removing of so much confusion, and particularly spiritual confusion and ignorance of not knowing about the higher levels of consciousness. So thus, the levels of consciousness are, we could say, the biggest gift of clarity to humanity, to know how to return to who you truly are and to open your highest potential, to open your highest, fullest potential. Because the average human person has only 4% of openness, of full consciousness. So 96% of potential is dormant. And thus there is a great potential in humanity that can be opened once a person realizes who you truly are, removing all the obstacles and all the limitations.